It's one thing to have a diverse population, but something else to have a diverse community. Here in Boston, that community has sometimes been elusive, and in some places the diversity is hard to picture. Trying to make connections and put that diversity on the map is the aim of the Epicenter Community, launched earlier this year. We'd like to welcome its president, Malia Lazu. Thank you very much for being with us, Malia.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're sort of a follow-up on what we used to know of as Future Boston. So how's the Epicenter Community different?
So the Epicenter Community, I like to say, is our next evolutionary step in this experiment of believing that Boston can fix its problems when it decides to see itself differently and see each other, other residents differently. So, with Future Boston, we were very specific. I think we were very niche around certain populations, and we want to build that larger now and take our experiences to another level. So, like Juneteenth at the Museum of Fine Arts, which we do, larger events like that can eventually bring a national spotlight.
What did you do? Tell us a little bit about what happened on Juneteenth.
I would love to, especially because it'll give me a chance to say that Juneteenth is happening in June this year as well, June 15th, and so people please come. But we celebrate the holiday of Juneteenth at the Museum of Fine Arts by celebrating African American artists from Boston, and whether that's theater, this year it's fashion. We also bring in some music like the Roxbury Youth Orchestra Revolution of Hope has come in for a couple of years, and it's just a beautiful takeover of the museum. The museum also puts together tours around their own individual collections that they have displayed, so people can go on museum tours. And we're excited this year because there's the tech style happening, which is a fashion component at the museum already. So we're going to be bringing in local African American fashion designers, and then they also have that Mega Asia or Mega Cities, Asia tour, and so we're going to talk about Ai Weiwei and talk about the history of art and freedom, especially within African Americans' own freedom here in the United States.
How do you think that changes people having this kind of an event? Because I know that the museum has diversity of art, but to have an event where you're really trying to engage a particular community, they're a presence. They're not just in the mix of people coming in the door.
That's right. Juneteenth at the MFA gives different groups different indicators that it's a home base for them. Juneteenth, one of the blackest holidays in the country, so black people know, like, oh, this is Juneteenth. What does the museum know about Juneteenth? That's a place for us. And then, other populations, white people, if you will, might not know about Juneteenth and might not go to the Kite Festival, right, in Franklin Park. They might not celebrate Juneteenth in certain ways, but they will come to the museum, right? That's going to be a place where they're comfortable, they know what to expect. And so what you see is that both populations are very comfortable here. And I think that that's really the power dynamic that we try to remove in our experiences that makes a difference in other in things like workshops or panel discussions, things that are billed to be more transactional. People come in to be transactional.
Well, another thing you're trying to do here, and this is one more kind of diversity, is working with fashion for people with disabilities.
Yes. And Chris, I can't tell you, it's amazing. I've been doing social justice work for 20 years, right? I'm all over the country and, in different parts of the world. And yet the disability community is a community that I've never worked directly with before. But also in talking with people with disabilities who are in our community, what I also realized was even the most progressive of us still will forget about this community. And so in talking to people with disabilities who are in our community, we were talking about the 25th anniversary of the ADA, which was last year. And they were saying how the disability movement is still about curb cuts and and helping people not feel awkward so that they could come in and work, right, with society. But that the culture of it, right, and the fashion and the music and the just wasn't there. And so we started trying to think of what could we do. Again, there's an amazing ADA movement, right? We're not trying to we're not trying to replace that or say we could do something better. But what we have is this unique ability to bring people together. And so we wanted to do that with the disability community and with the people with disabilities within our community. So we're going to be doing 2 annual events, back to back, but about 3 months apart. And the first one's going to be a charrette. And the charrette is going to be a time for 10 to 15 people with different disabilities and disability advocates to meet with designers, buyers. We're even bringing in a couple of sneaker designers to come in and to just talk to one another and to find out that like the difference between a snap and a button can be huge, depending. Fish hook earrings, right? Like just simple things that could help people with disabilities live a fashionable life. I mean, you know what it feels like to put on a great tie, right? Like to put on that accessory or that piece of fashion. So not in some type of frivolous way, but in a way of our humanity, and who has the chance to express themselves how is what we're really going to explore. And then in a couple of months, we'll have a fashion show. That'll be a fully accessible fashion show built, by the community, with us helping making it a very nice, high quality event. So we're really looking forward to it.
Well, one issue that the Epicenter is still working on that was a concern to Future Boston is access to liquor licenses, and I think this is mainly about restaurants that not in these neighborhoods that are oversaturated, but in some of the other neighborhoods, I guess, that are underrepresented.
Yes. The liquor license it's similar to the taxi license or Hackney, right? There was a great article actually in this Sunday's Globe about the taxi Hackneys and should we get rid of the medallions and all of that. And I think that this false economy is something we also have to talk about. It's a very dark place in City Hall. Mayor Walsh seems to be the first mayor to be keeping records, actually, of liquor licenses. And before we started working with Councilor Presley around getting more liquor licenses. And really, we need to lift the cap, but that's going to be a struggle, and we're going to have to do some compromise there. And so this was our first compromise, which was getting 75 new liquor licenses. And so before we got that, we only had 2 African-American liquor license holders in the entire city of Boston. There were 4 liquor licenses in Roxbury, and there were, over 80 in the North End, right? So when you start looking at these statistics, you see that there's economic deprivation, right? That certain neighborhoods have a chance to or have an opportunity to engage in. But there's also, again, this human aspect of it. And that's really what I think we're doing with Epicenter Community, right? What does it mean if you want to go on a date or if you want to celebrate, your child's first communion and you have to leave, right? Because there's only 4 restaurants in your neighborhood, right? Well, what is that saying to this neighborhood about what their societal traditions are worth, right? That they would have to go to the South End or go to the North End or go to another place in order to ask someone to marry them, right? I mean, you might want to do that in the neighborhood, but yet several neighborhoods in this city, people are not allowed to live those simple lives of walking to a restaurant, on date night with your wife or something.
Yeah, feeling at home in the neighborhood. Well, you have a lot of things on the Twitter feed and social media, so if people want to keep up with that, what's the best way to do it?
Yes, at Epicenter.com. That's EPICENTERCOM. And you can also find us on epicentercommunity.org.
Right. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Malia Lazu.